Welcome to the Heart and Soul Zoom podcast, where words, people, and stories matter. Tonight, we're back in the listening room, where we began this podcast for a discussion on tonight's topic, Words Matter, what we say and what they really mean. So let me ask you something. Have you ever said something out loud, felt fine about it, no problem, and then later thought, oh, I probably shouldn't have said it like that, or I probably shouldn't have said that? Well, me too. More times than I'd like to admit. Words and everyday sayings we all grew up hearing and repeating without questioning, like that's crazy or man up. Today, they take on a whole different meaning. Now, to be clear and reassuring, tonight's conversation will not be about walking on eggshells or turning into the language police. Rather, this is about awareness, evolution, and yeah, maybe laughing at ourselves a little along the way. Because let's be honest, if language evolves and we don't, that's how you end up being that person in the family or at work who's still using phrases from 1992 like a personality trait, right? And we don't want to be stuck there. So tonight we're breaking it down. Where the phrases came from, why some of them are problematic, and what it actually means to do better with our words without losing our sanity over every single thing that we say. But before I share the inspiration for tonight's show, I'm going to ask you the 3 questions that I just sent you, and you can be thinking about them for our discussion. What's a phrase you've stopped using, or one you still aren't sure about the correct way to use it? Are we being too sensitive about the words and phrases we use, or are we just becoming more aware and respectful in our language? And number 3, in this chaotic and stressful world we live in today, do words matter more now than ever before? Ponder those questions while I share the inspiration for tonight's topic. A few weeks ago, my darling granddaughter Ella called and asked if I would fill out a survey as part of her college class assignments. I replied, sure, and then I asked, what class? Her response was, and I quote, I'm not sure of the official title, Nana. I just call it the old people's class. At that point, she and I engaged in conversation, more my tirade and her smirking over her in this class pigeonholing me as old people. Now, it's not that I'm unaware of my advancing age. I just think there should be a more respectful way to positioning that age other than calling it out as old. Nonetheless, I completed the survey, which eventually I learned is part of my granddaughter's major of event and program planning, tourism, and hospitality. And the class is officially titled Hospitality and Travel for Seniors and Aging. Marginally better than old people, I guess. For the most part, the survey was fine, but there were questions that I felt were assuming things about seniors and aging that in this era were out of touch. So, on the last page of the 3-page survey, I wrote a note to the class professor. Dear Sir, after answering your survey, I would like to raise a few observations. Aging does not automatically define a person as medically challenged, physically diminished, mentally dull, unable to see or hear, disinterested and no longer engaged with the world. What it does mean is that it's a time in life when there is less road ahead than behind, no matter physical, mental, or emotional challenges that may only be starting to define my life. Period. The end. Words matter. And I think a valuable assignment for your students in your class would be to come up with a better title to describe people 65 and over, respectfully. So, in trying to come up with a better term for people my age, on my own, I dove into research on why words change. Language evolves with culture and awareness. Words can carry hidden histories, racism, ableism, colonialism. And what was normal before may now be harmful or outdated. For example, as I mentioned in the opening, that's crazy. Are you blind? Or lame, that's just so lame. Words that reinforce stigmas towards disabilities. Master bedroom, blacklist, whitelist, sold down the river. racist and discriminatory phrases that are grounded in slavery and which we have long used without realizing their true origins or meanings. You guys, man up, that's so gay, all of which can be delivered in ways that are gender insulting. Kill two birds with one stone. Take a shot at it. Pull the trigger. These days, our society doesn't need more ways to incite violence, even in our words. The good news is that as a society, we have recognized these issues and replaced some of those damaging words. For example, challenged, disabled, differently abled, focused on agility, not limitations. Brain health, mental health, instead of mental illness. Aiming to reduce the stigma of a life circumstance beyond the individual's control. And when it comes to old people, according to a recent survey, a sampling of older Americans preferred to be defined as mature adults, older adults, and seniors. I still think there has to be a better title to hang on us, but for now, we're going to let it go. Finally, why do these word changes matter? Words show respect. Language shapes how people see us. Words create identity. People want to define themselves, not be labeled. And on its own, a person's tone and the way they speak words can make them feel clinical and harsh or humanizing. The issue is, not everyone agrees on what's right for words. Also, language is tricky. We know this. The moment you learn the correct word or phrase, it often changes again. So at this point, with the 3 discussion questions in your chat, let's get started. So what I'd like to know is if anyone has a feeling about words or wants to talk about challenges you've had with them, and I'm happy to tell some more, but I'd like to hear your own experiences if you're willing to share.
What comes to mind as you were, telling us your thoughts about this and what you've researched, I can remember when using the word Oriental to describe someone from Asia, the Asian countries, was okay. And then, now it isn't. So it's, you say Asian or East Asian or something like that. So, and you can get caught up in that because, especially mature adults have a lot of history and, sometimes they're grasping for words as it is.
Right.
And, and so they default to what they used to, what they were comfortable using before. And nobody means anything by it. And I've been able to make the transition okay, but I know that not everybody can. So,
and Kathy, I think the thing that you said that's so important, there are words often that especially older generations not only have used, but heard growing up. So they're really ingrained in us. Yeah. And I can remember saying words to people that insulted them, absolutely insulted them. And it never occurred to me because I'd heard my mother say it all my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and I just, right. It never, I didn't think it was hurtful, but once the person communicated that to me, I understood it completely. So I think your point is really well taken about older people, especially because not that we're not capable of understanding it, but because they've been part of the fabric of our lives for a couple of generations, our parents before us and now ours. So right. It's tough that way, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm sure we've all had the experience of grandchildren or children, rolling their eyes at us over some faux pas that we did because we didn't know the meaning of it or what they mean, what they interpret it as meaning now. And then informing you that, Nani, you don't say that anymore.
Informing is a polite way to phrase that, yeah.
And you're right. The rolling of the eyes,
right.
Actually, they're they're getting better with that, but not 100%. So
I hear that. And, the words they use, like I remember when sick started to mean that it was very cool, right? Because you don't say cool or neat, any of that stuff. You say sick. It's so sick now. And I'm like, is that good? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? The new one is fly. You're so fly.
Oh,
I
fly.
fly. Who would have thought that that is a compliment?
Right.
But
And
that's what they tell me.
I believe that the genesis of that was the African American community. Like that's been a long time, a word that they've used. My life has been
Yeah.
a compilation of working with Native minorities, Native Americans, African Americans, and then the Hispanic community. So
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of their over the last 10 years. I've been around, immersed in their languages and the words they use. And fly was something that the African American or black or, again, that's the other thing.
That's the other thing, right? Yeah.
I really have, I worked with the Native American community for half a dozen years, and they don't even agree within their own community, right?
No.
Some of them want to be called Native.
Yeah.
Some of them are good with Native American. Some don't like the American tagged onto it. I don't want to be American. I just want to be Native. And then there's others who really will say Indian.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wrong any way I turn.
Yeah. Right. Hmm.
So it's tough. Hi, Hannah. Welcome. We're just talking about words and how they are changed over time. And Hannah is Ella's age. So, Hannah, I told the story about why this topic came up tonight was that Ella asked me to do a survey for one of her tourism classes. And I asked her the name of the class, and she said she didn't know, but she called it the old people's class. And so that started a whole big brouhaha between she and I about don't call me an old person. There's better words to call me. And so that's how we got where we are right now. And so we just started, Kathy was talking about how your generation hears different things, but our generation, our parents said in what is now considered inappropriate in through all our everyday language. And then we continued it on. And now the world is saying, well, those things are inappropriate. And we've had them in our life for so long that it doesn't occur to us until someone points it out or someone gets mad and tells you you're being a jerk. So it's tough. It can be tough, especially when you use words, right? Like that's what I do for a living. And so trying to make sure you miss those pitfalls is exhausting. So anyway, welcome, Liesel. I hope you can hear us. We just started and we're just talking, sharing our ideas about words and how they challenge us to get the right words in the right places at the right time, pretty much. Anybody else want to share their ideas about words and the challenges you have?
Hi, Christina, it's Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I had to sit down and have a long talk with Sarah when I retired from nursing.
Sarah's your daughter.
Yes. The pronoun thing wasn't, really part of, anything I had to worry about at that time. And I was lost.
Mhm.
So Sarah has to deal with it all the time and, the film industry. So I still, I think I figured out most of it, but I'm so worried about offending people. And I know in the medical field now, it's always on the questionnaire, what your preferred pronouns and everything are. So you know, I've been a little uneasy with that and I don't want to offend anybody.
I
So
understand it totally, Lori, especially like even the social media wants you to pick a word.
right.
And I understand for people who gender is really a crucial issue in their life. It's not for me. I've always been she or her. There's never been any hesitation in my mind as to my orientation. So it doesn't occur to me to look for a different way to express myself describe myself. But for people who do have gender identity challenges in their life, then I can understand that. But where I see, the one question about for Liesel and Hannah, the three questions. Let me see if I can send them to you tonight. Yeah, here they are. Let me see if I can find a way to send them to you. I'm on my own, so I'm now the producer of this show. So hang in with me, kids. So the three questions, I'll just read them. What's a phrase you've stopped using, or one you still aren't sure about the correct way to use it? Are we being too sensitive about the words and phrases we use, or are we becoming just more aware and respectful? And is the chaos and stressful world we live in today, do words matter more than ever before? So those are our three questions that we're kind of digging around with tonight. But what I saw, especially during COVID, there was that the intensity of remote learning and the challenges that everybody felt with remote learning really ramped up the pressure of words. You had to be more careful than ever with your words. And one of those was related to the gender issue. And the schools really started expanding their willingness to allow not only gender, but who you believe you are. I'm really, who your kind of spirit is, whether it's a dog or a cat, or it's hard. It's a tough world out there right now, especially for kids. You've got enough confusion in your life as you're growing up as a teenager, and then all these words and identities are heaped onto all of them, and trying to figure out how to do it without making someone mad or getting in a fight. I mean, I know my grandson during all of COVID, and they were in school, they were out, his school district was the most in and out district of any in our community. They were out for 2 weeks, they were in for 2 weeks. So all of that was tumultuous. And then on top of it, they just started extending all these rules and regulations. And on certain days you could come in, as a dog or a cat. And it was a lot. And words matter and your feelings matter. But when you're on the other side of that, their feelings mattered as well. So it was really very confusing for all the kids at that time. And I felt sorry for them, because just when you do words, but then when you add gender on top of it, it's a lot of pressure.
Christina, it's Kathy. I would be interested to hear what the younger people have to say, like Hannah, if she's Ella's age. I'd like to hear her perspective on that and how, they're navigating that as students and as young people in the world, that the whole pronoun thing. I know I've had some conversations with my granddaughters about it, and one of them is working on her master's in education now, and she's anticipating that being, something that she's going to be facing as a teacher in the classroom. So I'm curious to hear what the younger people, what their perspective is.
Hannah, there she is. Hi, Hannah. And can you unmute, or do I need to unmute you?
Yes, I'm
Good.
unmuted.
Are you willing to have this conversation? You don't have to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of it is about intentionality. Because like when someone I've always been confident like that I am a girl and that I love being a girl and all that, and that I use like she, her and stuff. But I think that if you choose to go by different pronouns, there's like you kind of understand that like not everyone is going to get it. And I hear from my own parents that like um that times were just like different, so you're just not used to it yet. So I think like it's all about just like when you put forward like an effort to call someone what their preferred, it's kind of it's no, it's just respectful. And then like messing up is it is what it is. It happens. And understanding just comes from like, I don't know, working through it, I guess.
Communication, right? Being
Yes.
willing to have the courage to speak the words, to say, look, this is new to me, or I don't really understand it because I'm just a she, but I'd like to understand more. And so if I get it wrong, please don't think I don't care or I'm not interested. It's just, it's not my strength. It's not what I do. So let's try to figure it out. I think it is really hard. I have a hard time, and again, this is probably generational, but I have a hard time with they and them, calling a singular person they or them, because that's always, in my mind, that's been a group. Like I'm pointing to they or to all of them. And I understand it's the least defining, maybe, gender pronoun. So it's easy. It's not she, it's not he, it's they. But when you do that and you don't know, like I'll get documents and I'm reading something and all of a sudden it says they said, and I'm like, wait a minute, were there more than two people they were referring to? And I have to go back and realize that no, but this is the way this person wants to be referred to. So it takes thought, not only what and how you're speaking, but in thinking and processing. So I don't know. I mean, in college, is it at high school, I know because Ella went to school with Hannah. So I know that it was kind of a big deal. Like it was encouraged, let's put it that way. Is college the same way, Hannah, or is it laid back more?
I think, well, at least my experience, like the classes that I've been in, there's not, I'm not really interacting with people on that kind of level, like, because they're just, it's a big class. I'm not talking to people directly. And
Mhm.
then, more so like in my friends, like, I have a few friends who use they, them, and I have a friend who is transgender. And, it's just like, you kind of get to know them, like, just kind of case by case, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
it's, like I know some people that say like, oh, they just refer to everybody as them or whatever. Um, but like some people you look at them and you're kind of not sure. It's kind of, I would say, like among younger people, it's accepted to just like go up to them and be like, hey, what do you want to be called? You know, like being
And
direct
why
about it.
not? Like, let's just make it easy, right? Take the pressure off. I think you're wise. You know, your generation is wise dealing. It's just a lot for me. Like, it's just like, oh God, what do I say? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And that's really the hard part. Um, and I won't keep talking too long, but there's a story. There is a woman in Buffalo who, she was the first, well, one of the first openly public transgender women in Buffalo. And her name is Camille Hopkins, and she's very public, so it's fine for me to share her name. But I did quite a few interviews with her, and she worked in City Hall. We won't talk about the administration because there's no point, but um, they treated her so badly, they would not allow her to use either bathroom because she wasn't one and she wasn't the other, right? Had been a man and now she's a woman, and she had the surgery. So she's physically a woman as well, but they would not allow her to use the bathroom. So they put a bucket in one of the utility closets, and that's where she had to go to the bathroom. Now, I don't care how you feel about who she is or what she's done. She's a human being. You know, she doesn't deserve to go in a dark room with a bucket to go to the bathroom. So those are the things where sometimes I get really frustrated with the word rules and who needs to say what to who. But then there's other times when I think we're so far short of being a caring society. But again, that was, gosh, 25 years ago. You know, obviously we've come a long way. But what was interesting, she moved out to Seattle because it was a very welcoming community to transgenders. She didn't stay. She came back. She didn't like it there. So I don't know, you know, I think we all make our own way, but I find that when people try to make change, we don't necessarily treat them well because we don't understand it or we're afraid of it. And that's where if we use our words, you know, whatever the words are, that's communication and it's important. And then you can maybe make a breakthrough. Thanks, Hannah, for being willing to share that story. And Kathy, good question. Mary, do you want to say anything or are you just hanging out tonight? That's my sister-in-law, Mary, asked to unmute.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay. So Mary lives up in north towards the Adirondacks in New York State, but she is from New Orleans originally.
Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans, very prejudiced place. And of course, I'm sure you can tell I am not white. So I really didn't belong there. And, you know, words are definitely used down there to hurt. Um, you said that, you know, things are different now. And we don't think of people the same way as we used to, and we don't use the same terminology. That might be true in certain areas, but where I live now, even with a ticket in my hand, I get ignored at the deli. I'll get passed by because, you know, it's somebody's friend, and they'll take care of them first, and then I'll get skipped because they'll assume that somebody's number is being called, but it wasn't. And so then they'll go to the next number, and I have lost my turn. You know, I went to, when we first bought our home, we needed all sorts of things, including some tools. and I went to the hardware to get them. And I had just received a coupon for my birthday to use. It was a lot. It was like 25% or something off. And I picked out a whole bunch of stuff, brought it to the cash register. There was a big line behind me, big line in front of me. So we all waited, and it got to be my turn, and I gave the coupon over as she was running everything through. And then she looked at the coupon and said, oh boy, I haven't seen one of these in a long time. And she turned it over and she said, oh, it's expired. You can't use this. And she looked up at me and she went, oh, but you're not white. So yeah, I have to take it from you. Okay, I'll give you the discount.
She said that to you?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, at least you got the discount. I guess there's something there, but the fact that she said that,
I actually just, left.
wow.
Yeah, just left it on the counter. And the gal behind me, who was waiting behind me, got really pissed. She expressed what I wanted to.
I'm proud of you, Mayor.
And I was being good. I was being
Yeah,
really good.
you're
And I
being
raced
good.
out to the car so that I'd remain good.
And that's the thing, as white, well, as women, we certainly know the hurtful part of words and being discriminated against and things like that. But as a white person, there's so much I have no idea. And again, I learned in working with Native Americans and African Americans and the Latino community, the discrimination against them is unimaginable. I did work with doctors who specifically chose to start a medical practice in the lower west side of Buffalo, which is the Latino community. And they did that because they couldn't get health care in any way. And the doctors, created this healthcare facility and then went out of their way to fight Medicaid so that they could get insurance. So the people not only could they get health care, but they also started what's it called? Kathy, you'll know what this is, and Lori probably too. The social detriments of health, right? CDOH, yeah, social detriments of health. They helped get transportation so they could get, we talked about this last week with the doctor that was on, transportation so they could get to their appointments. And then also translators if they need them, and health food, they could get to food sources that were healthy for them, which were things they couldn't do before this medical practice got set up. So I think that there's so many things we don't understand, not only in words, but in treatment. So thank you for sharing that, Mary, because that was a very personal story. And thank you for that.
I grew up in the South Towns here and in a very predominantly white environment. And most of my grandchildren have too, and my children. And so there's so much that we haven't been exposed to. Here's as being racist to some people. Some of it is just a lack of experience and knowledge. And so I think most people want to be respectful, not all, that's for sure, but most people do. And they don't see themselves as racist. And I think part of that is because they don't have the experience. Like you said, Christina, you have worked with different
Black, brown,
people.
and red people.
Right. And I have to a small extent, not a lot. So some of it is lack of experience, lack of knowledge. Not that they're outwardly, trying to be disrespectful,
Right. Kathy, I'm fascinated. Your lack of knowledge, I think that was what you said, or understanding. And the first word that came into my mind was ignorance. And again, there, like you changed the dialogue there and made it something that was understandable. Whereas if I had said ignorance, it would have put a really dark shadow on that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So,
You're right about that. That's true. Um, as
Yeah,
you say, words matter, and that's a perfect example of it. Yeah.
right,
ask
exactly.
Chris what she used to do with when I was in the room and she was telling a joke.
I'd call her short.
Mm-mm.
What?
Right.
What vegetables did you use?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, and Kathy's going to understand this, okay? Kathy's Irish. So you tell an Irish joke, you tell an Italian joke, You tell a Polish joke, although there was a much worse term they used for it then. And if I started a joke like that, Mary would get like right in my face. Stop that. That's racist. You shouldn't do that. So I started telling the joke, calling one a tomato and one a cucumber and one a carrot. It didn't have the same effect, but we
Yeah, yeah,
did what we could. But she was
yeah.
right. She was so right. And the thing is, you don't even realize it because you grew up in South Buffalo,
That's
you
how
grew
we
up
grew
in
up.
North
Yeah.
Buffalo. That was
Mhm.
the Italians told their own jokes. You know what I mean? Like everybody was ethnic. So you talked in ethnic terms. Our community was divided into ethnic communities. The first word was
Right.
the Irish, the west side was the Italian. I don't know, where the east side were the Poles. So it was all, and that's the way they were spoken about and acknowledged, and that was the reality of what they lived in. Do you think we're too sensitive? Are we making too big a deal out of these phrases? And you're the one that meant you retard. Like that was something that was said without even thought when we were in school, and yet you wouldn't say that anymore. Like that's just
Yeah.
hurtful.
Yeah, right. Or just saying retarded. Oh, she's retarded. I mean, that was a term we used in the nursing community. I mean,
Really?
that was how we described it, right, Mary? Way back in the
No,
60s?
Mary, Lori's the nurse.
Lori.
Oh yeah, we use that all the time. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not quite sure when it changed, but there was a point in my nursing career it was unacceptable.
right. Yeah, me too. I remember that. Yep. Yep. So, yeah. And so, yeah, I think in some ways we're too sensitive about it. I do in some ways. And
Like what?
again, I
Yeah.
think that
Like what?
some of I think we've taken it maybe too far. As you said, things, a word that you had used for a long time, then all of a sudden it's changed that you can't use it, and to get offended by that, maybe we need to
When you still
understand
say
each
it.
other a little bit more,
Yeah, when you still
Yeah.
say it, like it comes out, you don't even think of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Like I said before, older people who are struggling sometimes to remember words at all,
Right.
default to their youth and what they grew up with and everything. And so, people have to be aware of that, I think, is what I'm saying.
Here's the other thing that just came into my mind. I don't know why I didn't talk about or put this on the list before. Hannah, this is no offense to you because I've never heard you talk like this, but your generation uses the most disgusting language that we would have been like mouth washed out with soap and grounded for like a month for the
Yeah.
F word, for
Yeah.
the C word. And
Mhm.
it's part of your language. It's not like you even use it for effect. And I'm not saying you, Hannah, but your generation, you're not even using it for effect anymore. It's become part of your lexicon. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
part of your everyday language.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to just answer this question for me? Are you offended by that at all, or does it seem normal to you? Has it become so normalized that it doesn't matter anymore?
Um, I really think it depends on the situation and the person. Like when I'm with my friends, um, there's no issue with, swearing or whatever. But like I wouldn't, just drop the F word like when I'm around like coaches or teachers or something. Just because it's kind of like because it's not like I feel like cursing isn't like directly disrespectful to someone. It's kind of more like respecting the space. Like I'm not, it's just like there's just a time and a place, I guess.
Yeah. Now, ladies, you see why we love Hannah so much.
Mhm.
Thank you for even answering that. I don't know. Anybody else bugged by the swearing, or are you around young people enough to even know that that's what's happening out there?
I found in my experience as a nurse that the medical community had pretty foul language, not in front of patients, but behind the scenes. And I always thought it was more of a way of blowing off steam, when you were in very stressful situations. So I honestly don't think too much about it because my 40 some years as a nurse, I was so exposed to it all the time. Even now, a lot of my nursing friends that I get together with, I work so many jobs, so I have all these pockets of nursing friends that I get together
Right.
with. Yeah, and the language is pretty salty. So
But did it ever bother you, Lori? I mean, did you grow up with language? Like some people grew up with language in their family. My family, you never swore. Well,
my
I shouldn't say that. They didn't swear big words. Let's put it that way. We got the damn and the hell and that kind of thing, but nothing
my
else.
family was rough. The way they spoke, and yeah, and they were extremely racist too. So I grew up well aware. I mean, the language that they used was quite awful. So I grew up trying not to be that way. As far as using language that hurts other people. Though I have to say, once in a while, I blow off steam and something will come out of my mouth that shouldn't.
Yeah,
Me
especially if it
too, Mary.
hurts, right?
Me too.
Like you knock your finger with a hammer or yeah, that's when I,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other words, though, because I mean, I still have some contact with family members who remain that way. And though I'm not as quiet as I used to be, so when they say they know better than to say anything around me now because I'm right down their throat. If they start telling racist jokes or anything, I have no tolerance for that, such disrespectful language. It was the same way when I worked as a nurse, when we were talking about the phrases, of old people, older people, old people. Um, I used to get so upset when I would hear staff refer to older patients, honey, dear. I mean, very condescending, demeaning language for elderly people. I always referred to them as Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, unless they asked me to call them by their first name. Same thing when I did home care. I always went in, Mr. or Mrs., respectful. And most of the time they would ask me to call them by their first name, but I never called anybody honey or dear or, anything like that. It's a matter of respect and kindness towards people.
basic humanity, right? Like just be
Mhm.
decent to people.
Yeah.
Um, I opened a continuing care retirement community and it was one of the best periods of my life because of the people moving in. They were all awesome because they lived long enough to know what was important, but they still had energy and spirit about them. But there were certain rules and regs and certain ways that the place operated that I think sometimes discouraged them from being young, right? And kind of put them into um, rows. Okay, this you have to do the here and you have to do this. And one of the things I loved to do was to talk to them about sex. And not overtly, but just like, hey, anybody cute? If you see you're looking to date somebody, that kind of thing, male or female, because it got to be my favorite line. They're old, they're not dead, right? And I say that to my family all the time when they'll say, oh, can we help you to the car? I'm like, I'm old. I'm not dead. Like, stop already. And they're like, we're just trying to be, polite and respectful. And I'm like, I get that. But if I need help, I'll ask you. And that's what I felt like about these people in this retirement community because they still had vital lives. They just were, not what they were 10, 15, 20 years earlier. So we just need to keep treating people like they're real people. And sure, there's changes and disabilities, but you do your best to make them feel like they still exist,
Right.
not just in a chair stuck in a corner, right? Which is what my kids threaten me with all the time. Okay, so I think the only what's the last question? I'm trying to remember.
In this chaotic and stressful world we live in today, do words matter more than now than ever before?
So I'm sure when I wrote that question, I thought, well, I'm sure during Nazi Germany, words mattered a lot, obviously. But for Americans in our nation, and what's going on right now. And I'm not asking to discuss politics, but I'm just talking about what truly is communication, the communication on all levels, on the television, on the radio, in schools, wherever. Are words changing? Is their importance any different now than it has been at any other time in our lives, do you think?
I don't think so. I think that, you know, I think we were more careful about words back then. I just do. I think now the attitude is, something, they cover it up by saying, well, you know, we're just telling it the way it is. Well, I always said, I've felt that, sometimes telling it, you can tell it the way it is, but you can choose your words and
I
choose
just
to
heard you
be
as
as
a mother
kind as you
right
can.
there. That was your
Pardon me?
mother's voice. That was your mother's voice. You
Yeah.
can tell it the way it is, but you can choose your words. I can just
Yeah,
see you.
exactly. You know, and that's how I feel about telling it the way it is. Yeah, you can. And sometimes telling it the way it is, if it's going to really hurt somebody, then just shut up. That's how I feel about it. You know, there's no, unless it's a really important thing. Like sometimes with people and their health or a safety thing, it's a different story. But otherwise, you know, the whole choose kindness seems to me to be the best road.
This has been fascinating and so different. This is our fourth Heart and Soul podcast. This is the first time we've had a roundtable like this where everybody has talked and really contributed. And this has been very fun. This has been like you've been in my house. So thank you for that gift. I've really enjoyed that part of it. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to the conversation before we finish?
Thank you for the conversations, Christina.
Oh.
I'm enjoying them.
I'm so glad. I do want to tell you, Lori, I don't think you know this yet, but in 2 weeks, Lori's daughter is going to join us.
Oh, is she? Oh, she
Yeah,
didn't
she
say.
is. Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'm just going to tell you she's going to be with us. Lori's daughter is a screenwriter, and a director and a movie producer.
Oh, cool.
So
Very
we have her daughter and the other person, I think he's in his late 30s and he is a filmmaker as well, but they both have exciting news about films they've made. And I thought it would make a very fun program. So not next week, but the week after. So I appreciate that everyone took a calm approach to the topic and presented your word issues with good sense and humor. Because after all, at the end of the day, it's not about developing the perfect word or the appropriate phrasing. It's really about showing respect for each other. So I'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m., same Zoom link. So use it again. And if you have a topic you would like to suggest, please send it to me at christinaapp@hotmail or my website, christinaapp.com contact, or just drop me a DM on any of my social media. We're going to keep this thing moving forward. I know there weren't a lot of us tonight, but there's definitely interest and I enjoy it. It's what I've done for years and years and years. And the fact that you keep coming back encourages me. So thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed this Heart and Soul podcast and that our conversation stays with you, inspires you, and brings you back again to this special place where words, people, and stories matter. Until next week, take care. Talk soon.